girls, so in today's video I am going to be showing you guys how to choose the right foundation shade for you. So this is a question that I get a lot from my friends, from my family members, from you guys, and from people always asking in my Tumblr ask box. It's just a question that I get a lot, and I know it's a question that people ask a lot just because you really want to pick the right color foundation. It's the most essential part of your makeup. You don't want to have the wrong shade at all, or else your whole entire face will just look all wrong. So it's really super important to pick your proper foundation shades. There's a couple steps to it, and at least I'll show you guys the steps that I use and the tips that I use to find my right foundation shade. Over here I have 3 foundations that I am currently using, and I've picked all of these shades by myself and they match me perfectly, if not like 96% correct to my face. So I think that I do a pretty good job at finding the right foundation shade. So I will show you guys how I have found my perfect foundation shade in many different foundations and how to identify them, because a lot of different foundations carry different tones and different little shades, and it can just really get really complicated. So I'll show you guys how to be able to spot your perfect color. Like I said, there's a couple steps, but before we go into those steps, there's just 2 most important things when you're trying to find your perfect foundation shade. It's to make sure you know A, your skin tone, and B, what shade you are. So skin tone meaning what undertone you have, cool, pink tone, or neutral. I'll go more into that in step 1. And then shade meaning how pale you are or how dark you are. So on a scale of 1 to 10, how pale are you, how dark are you? And it's really important to know. I think a lot of people think they might be paler than they really are, and a lot of people think they may be darker than they really are. So it's really important to really just look at your body, see how pale or dark you may be, and go from there. So I've written down all the steps that I feel like on my phone. So if you see me looking at my phone, then you know why. It's kind of hard sometimes just to say it off the top of your head. So I have it written down in a note that I made. But with step 1, like I said, identify your skin tone. So you can either be neutral, cool toned, or yellow toned. There's a whole other bunch of different tones like olive tone, gold tone, and blah blah blah. But to really narrow it down and do this in the simplest form, just identify whether you are neutral, cool toned, or warm toned. So neutral meaning you're nor warm nor cool. So I'm neutral toned, but I'm definitely more cool toned infused. So cool toned means that you have more pinks in you, more reds and pinks in you. And warm toned means that you have more yellow, olivey toned skin. So when you're neutral, a lot of the times makeup lines don't carry neutral shades, they only carry warm or pink. So that's why it's important that even though you're neutral, try to figure out whether or not you're more on the warm side or whether or not you're closer to the cool side. For my skin tone, for instance, I am pretty neutral. I don't have a lot of yellow and I don't have a lot of pink. However, I'm definitely more towards the cool side. I do have redness and pinkness undertone, and I'm definitely not yellow at all. So there's a bunch of ways to figure out what your skin tone is. The easiest way is simply just by looking at your face in the mirror and kind of guessing your skin tone, just looking at it. And sometimes it can be that easy and sometimes it can be more complicated for certain people. So if you're finding it difficult to sort of just look at yourself and to identify what tone you are, then I would suggest, like, you could even Google how to find your skin tone, and there's a bunch of different tips, but I'll give you a few right now. So one of the first ones is that people say if you tan easily, then you're definitely more warm toned, which means that the sun, you have more melatonin or something like that, and the sun picks it up really easily, so you get tan beautifully. If you burn more easily, then you're definitely more cool toned, which to me, I don't think that's 100% fully accurate, because my sister is definitely warm toned. She has a lot of yellow in her skin, however, she burns really easily. Another way is people say if your veins are blue or purple, then you're cool toned, which means you're more pink infused, and if your veins are green, then you are more warm toned. So sometimes people have difficulty distinguishing whether or not it's green or blue or purple. If you have difficulty distinguishing, then usually means that you're neutral toned. So I know this stuff sounds like a bunch of gibberish to some people, and it can be super complicated, but like I said, Google like different tips on finding your skin tones. Or you can even go to a MAC store, talk to a MAC artist. They're not always right. I've seen a lot of blogs online. People are like super mad that they've gotten matched at MAC stores and the MAC girl was totally wrong. So I would say get different people's opinions, professionals, and ask them what they think your skin tone is, whether or not you're cool, warm, or neutral. After you've identified which of those three you are, then you want to go ahead and identify how dark and how light you are. So me, I'm a pretty pale girl, however, I'm not super pale. So I usually, like on a scale of 1 to 10, I'm usually on the 2s or the 3s. So in MAC, I'm actually the lightest. So I'm actually NW15 in MAC. And another thing I want to quickly squeeze in there is if you're a MAC girl and you want to find your right MAC foundation shade, something I really need to point out about MAC that a lot of people get confused on is MAC sort of does their skin tones opposite. They have NW and NC, which most people would think that NW stands for neutral warm and NC stands for neutral cool, which I originally thought. So a long time ago, I had been wearing NC15 for the longest time, and I looked at myself in the mirror and I'm like, something is totally off with my face. Like, my foundation color is not right. But I thought to myself, how can that be possible? If C stands for cool and I'm cool toned, then I'm most definitely, this is the right color for me. Wrong. MAC does theirs opposite, and MAC actually supposedly said that the W and the C doesn't stand for warm or cool, so maybe they don't do it opposite, but in the way that us as customers look at it, we look at C as cool and W as warm. So they just think of it in the opposite as MAC. So I wear NW15, which is basically the cool toned shades. So these are the more pink infused shades. So they're actually not warm. They're not yellow toned. The C's that are cool toned are more warm toned for MAC. They more have yellow tones. So it's just opposite for MAC. So I just wanted to state that quickly. So yeah, I am an NW15 in MAC. This is the cool shades, and I am the 15, the lightest shade. I guess I can quickly swatch them for you guys if that matters. So here you have MAC. And then in the Revlon Color Stay, I am a 200 Nude. I believe this was the second lightest shade. I'm not sure if these are even really coming up on camera. They match me really well, so it probably just blends right in. And then in L'Oreal True Match, I am N3 Natural Buff. This one is slightly a little bit too dark for me now that it's winter, but it still matches my skin really perfectly. So as you guys can see, you can barely tell that it's on my hand. It matches me really well, these colors. So yeah, if you're like me and you're more neutral / cool tone, then those would be the colors in those certain foundations for you. But like I said, step 2, just make sure you really know how pale you are and how dark you are. And then step 3 is making sure that you're not matching your foundation to your face. And I know it sounds weird because it's like, wouldn't you match your foundation to your actual face? No, not really. You would match your foundation to your body, your arms, and your chest. Just because your face can be totally way paler than your actual body is. So if I actually matched my foundation to my face, I would have like the palest foundation ever because my face is super pale just because I don't tan it. I wear sunscreen, however my body, it gets tanned way more. So my face would be totally light and my body would be way darker. So you really want to make sure you're matching it to your chest, which is the best way. So when you're testing your foundation, you can go ahead and take a little bit on your finger and put it on your neck and your jawline, and even put it on your chest a little bit and see how well it blends in on the 2 different spots. And I think that'll really help some people. Basically, those are the only 3 steps to finding your foundation. It is pretty simple once you get those 3 steps down packed. I know for some people it can sound like a bunch of gibberish and it can sound pretty complicated, but I wanted to put it into steps for you guys just so that it seemed a lot easier and it was much simple to follow. I really wanted to get this video out there because I get a ton of questions on it, so I think it would be really helpful for a lot of people. yeah, and that's pretty much it for this video. Really quickly, I just want to shout out my eye makeup right now because I did it with the Naked 3 palette. And I'm super excited because it was my absolute first impression, and I just filmed a tutorial and a review on it, basically on this look, except I changed my lip color for this video. So if you want to check that out, please do. It will be linked at the end of this video right after I stop talking. So hopefully this video did help you guys, and hopefully you actually enjoyed watching, and I will see you guys in my next video, of course. Bye!